It's time for TWiT. Alexia Tsotsis joins us. So does Lance Ulanoff from Mashable, from Engadget, Tim Stevens, and my good buddy Roger Chang. We're going to talk about the Steve Jobs revelations from the Biography, the new Android phones and operating system, and will Google buy Yahoo? It's all coming up next on TWiT.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Audio bandwidth for This Week in Tech is provided by the new Winamp for Android, featuring wireless sync and one-click iTunes import. Now with free daily music downloads and full-length CD listening parties. Download it for free at winamp.com/Android. Video bandwidth for TWiT is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com. This is TWiT, This Week in Tech, episode 324, recorded October 23rd, 2011. Which way does it curve? This Week in Tech is brought to you by Ford, featuring Wi-Fi connectivity with available sync and My Ford Touch. Now your car could be a Wi-Fi hotspot. Check it out in the new 2012 Ford Focus and at Ford.com/technology. And by GoToMeeting. Today's mobile world makes easy-to-use collaboration software more than nice to have. It's a necessity. For your free 30-day trial, visit GoToMeeting.com and use the offer code TWiT. And by Audible.com. Sign up for the Platinum plan and get 2 free books. Go to audible.com/TWiT2. And don't forget to follow Audible on Twitter. User ID Audible_com. It's time for TWiT This Week in Tech. We're going to talk about the week's tech news, and golly gosh, there's a ton of it, and a great panel to do so. Starting off to my far left, Lance Ulanoff is here, formerly editor-in-chief of PC Magazine, now editor-in-chief of Mashable.com. Great to see you, Lance.
Thanks for having me.
And you're in New York today?
Yes, I'm in New York every day. Pretty much. Unless there's something going on and I got to go somewhere.
Well, I know somebody who's not in New York, because she's sitting right next to me, Alexia Tsotsis from TechCrunch.com.
Deep in the heart of Silicon Valley.
Silicon Valley. Great to have you back, Alexia.
Thanks
for being here.
You.
Really love having you on, as I do this guy, Mr. Roger Chang, one of the original Twitsers. You know, I hate Siri, because every time I say TWiT, it changes it to Twitter.
Oh.
That's bad.
Well, maybe you can train Siri to
No, you can't. Siri's untrainable. No.
Well, it's banned.
Oh,
She pooped on my carpet last night. Roger Chang. Oh, look at this double box. As if Roger's not sitting right there. Go ahead, push your. Roger's with TechZilla.com. His job, wrangling Patrick Norton. It's not an easy job.
No, it's a full-time job.
Yep.
Even off the clock.
Yep. And then to your right, we welcome, I think for the first time on TWiT, you've been on TNT many times, Tim Stevens, editor-in-chief of Engadget.
Thank you very much for having me.
Great to have you. Tim's from up in New York State.
I am.
I hardly know where to begin today. We're going to rush this because Lance and Tim want to leave in 1 hour to watch 60 Minutes because it's the Steve Jobs episode. In fact, Walter Isaacson, who is the author of the new Steve Jobs biography, is going to be on 60 Minutes, and apparently there'll be multiple revelations, many of which have already leaked. You were saying, Lance, I don't know if there's going to be anything new. We already know everything he's going to say.
Yeah. The 60 Minutes crew has been releasing little tidbits over the past week. And some of the stuff we had heard before. You know what I realized as they were releasing some of his comments and his sentiments about, Microsoft being unimaginative and what he really thought of Bill Gates is that right after Steve Jobs died, and it's quite natural to do this, people kind of took a very rosy view of him.
Yes.
Even though, we all knew, we've worked with Apple. Some of us, either knew Steve Jobs or interacted with him in some way. And we understood that he was a tough businessman and sometimes not an easy guy. But you almost forgot that for about a week or so. And now some of these comments that are coming back, there's a reason he was so successful. He took no prisoners. He always admitted to, stealing some of the best ideas, whatever he saw. Competition, he was talking about crushing it, wanted to crush Android, thought it was a stolen product. These things, he's a guy who went his own way his whole life, so it shouldn't be a big surprise. But I'm hoping that there's 1 or 2 revelations left in this report.
Isaacson on 60 Minutes says he's not of Steve Jobs. He's not warm and fuzzy. He was very petulant. He was very brittle. He could be very, very mean to people at times. It's really a 1-2 punch. You're right. We had the eulogy, the hagiography last week, and now we get the other side of Steve Jobs. And it's not pretty. In many ways, it's not pretty. I mean, saying things like, I don't care how much. He says to Eric Schmidt, apparently, in that famous meeting in Palo Alto at the coffee shop, it's not about money. You could give me $5 billion. I got plenty of money. I want to crush Android. I'm going to use till my dying breath and every penny of Apple's $40 billion in cash to crush Android.
You know what's amazing about that? I mean, if you read interviews from early Jobs, he says that he quotes Picasso and says, you know, good artists copy, great artists steal.
But not from me.
But not from me. It's such a hypocritical stance towards the end of his life, which makes you think like most successful people.
But see, I don't think
he sounds like kind of an asshole.
Well,
Yeah.
you see, that's the thing. I don't think he became. I think he always was. I mean, you have to be. I think you do have to be a little play hardball when you get into a business where.
But are you making an excuse for him? Do you think that his behavior is?
I'm not saying that it's good or bad. I'm saying that I don't think he was this nice, you know, Care Bear guy that suddenly became.
He
like,
was definitely no Care Bear guy.
that turned into this, you know, this kind of.
If anything, he maybe mellowed towards the end.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is.
Go ahead, Lance.
I was just going to say, maybe he mellowed or maybe he's been 100% consistent. I mean,
Right.
I think the way he worked was that he believed, you know, for his business, it was good to see good ideas, you know, going to Xerox, you know, seeing you know, an interface, you know, a graphical interface and stealing and going and making something better, seeing the mouse and making it usable. But you know, he's okay with other people copying his ideas as long as they don't become too successful doing so.
Right.
I mean, that was really it. Once he saw them rise to the level of a threat, then he said, okay, game's over now. You know, we're done playing. You took my stuff. You're becoming successful. I'm going to go after you. I'm going to crush you because this is how you do business. This is how you win.
He used the term thermonuclear war on Android. Wow.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing with the Apple-Samsung lawsuits. It's take no prisoners. In fact, they want to put Samsung out of business. They certainly have done so in some places, Germany and Australia so far.
Doesn't Samsung supply some of the component
Well,
parts?
that's the funniest thing. Absolutely. Samsung provides many of the
Camera
parts for this.
sensor in one part. It's shocking to me, though, that, you know, with all these revelations that Apple really hasn't gone after Android in particular. Right now, they're only picking on Samsung. So it's surprising to me that, you know, with all this coming out, that we haven't seen any legal action directly against Google. Maybe that's coming in the future, or maybe Tim Cook has a different opinion on things.
It's lawsuit by proxy, probably, and I imagine that the plan was, and I don't know, you know, that's a good point, Tim. I don't know if it will change now under Tim Cook. Maybe Tim will, you know, it's one thing to take everything personally, to have it be a grudge, but once you get into business, like politics, you kind of have to, as you point out, Roger, they work with Samsung. You kind of have to maybe take some of the personal stuff out of it.
Well, what's interesting is that in the Huffington Post article, you know, Jobs had an opportunity to meet with Obama, and he initially turned it down because he wanted a personal invitation from the president, you know, directly to him.
His wife Laureen said, the president wants to meet you, Steve. And Steve says, well, he can call me.
Right. And then he told.
6-day standoff.
Yeah.
Where they were just playing kind of powerful person chicken.
I have ordered the book. I have it overnighted. I want it tomorrow. Nobody's seen it except I guess AP has seen it. And any of you seen it?
Huffington Post
No.
has seen
HuffPo.
it.
Post.
I think 9 to 5
seen
Mac
it.
has a copy. I tried to get people to go to bookstores and you know, try to talk
Rifle
their
through
way.
the boxes, yeah.
No, because everyone still has it in stock. Everyone has it in stock.
It's in the back.
Yeah. So, but that didn't work. Like going to
That's
bookstores
kept
and saying,
secret.
"Hey, you want to give me a copy?"
They've done a better job of keeping this secret than they did the Harry Potter books. I mean, which would occasionally leak out electronically. I don't know. You know, people would scan in those books and they'd end up on you know, BitTorrent. But the Steve Jobs book somehow, you know, this is his legacy. He can still control things from beyond the grave.
It's amazing.
He somehow managed.
And
just
yet,
like every product release.
And
And
yet,
yet,
the iPhone 4S, though. I mean, we knew more about that than we did about this book.
yeah,
We didn't
well,
know that it was a 4S and not a 5.
Right. That was the one little.
Did we know that? No.
no,
You guys didn't know that?
we weren't sure what was
You
going
know,
to
I
happen.
bet you actually had a 5 still made up, and then at the last moment, it's like, oh, just call it the
Well, that's one thing that apparently people are saying. I know Engadget was saying this, CNET was saying this, that Steve's real legacy will be the iPhone 5, not the 4S. I don't know if I believe that. I think everything that Apple did, from the leather in the van that drives employees from San Francisco to Cupertino, was overseen directly by Steve Jobs. So I can't believe that a 4S came out without Steve's input. Here's the thing I find funny. This book actually has a leak of the next Apple big thing. And in a very un-Jobsian way, Steve Jobs told Isaacson that the next thing was TV. And this, we'd heard so many rumors for years. It started with Jason Calacanis 2 years ago. He said Apple's going to do a big screen HD TV. We kept hearing rumors. We thought even maybe it would be this time. Tim, what do we know about this Apple TV? What is it going to be?
We don't really know anything, but yeah, we've absolutely been hearing these rumors since, you know, like you said, for years now. And each time we have a big Apple event, we always wonder, well, maybe this will be the day that we see the Apple TV. You know, there's an Apple TV device, but not an actual Apple TV, you know, a TV with an Apple logo on it. So it's interesting to hear that all these rumors actually have something solid. There are some, you know, there's something solid behind all this this talk that we've heard for years. So maybe in Apple's next big event, we'll finally see this big screen TV that's white with an Apple on the front.
I thought we had already seen the Apple TV. Isn't it an iMac? I mean, the 24-inch, this big thing looks exactly like a TV. And that Apple TV device, you remember it got so small, right? And it's smaller once you tear off the hard casing. That slips right inside any TV, any Apple TV product. It's so simple for them to do. But the question is, and I think this is the reason it's taken so long, is Apple's been trying to decide whether or not it wants to be in that market. Is it the kind of market where they can really control things? Can they get the right distribution, the right visibility in Best Buy? Will Best Buy say, yeah, Apple TV, same way as with the other Apple products, we need to do something special for you, because there's a lot invested by those other partners who have a different relationship with Best Buy than, say, like an HP or someone else. So I think that that for me is the final hurdle there.
As Washington Post had the story, of course, they called the Apple TV, Steve called it a hobby. But according to the biography, quote, he very much wanted to do for television sets what he had done for computers, music players, and iPhones, make them simple and elegant. Jobs said, quote, I'd like to create an integrated television set that is integrated, meaning exactly what you said, Lance, Apple TV in a TV screen, that is completely easy to use. Quote, it would be seamlessly synced with all of your devices and with iCloud. No longer would users have to fiddle with complex remotes for DVD players and cable channels. And this is the quote that I think, this is the money quote. This is the one more thing from the grave. It will have the simplest user interface you could imagine. I finally cracked it, said Steve Jobs. That means I got it figured out. We got it. I have to say, I was very skeptical that they could possibly be thinking about a TV. What a terrible business for Apple to get into.
So, I mean, at All Things D, when Jobs referred to it most famously as a hobby in 2010. He said, TV's a hobby. Smarter people than us will figure it out.
Right.
But Jobs has a history of saying this stuff. I mean, before the iPhone, he said that phone carriers were hard to deal with. Before the video iPod, he said, I'm not convinced people want to watch movies on a tiny screen. So he's like, he's managing.
It was disinformation.
Well, yeah, it's the Jobsian reality distortion.
I like Jobsian.
Will that live beyond him? Will that something we'll still be using, 20 years down the line?
Sure.
Hey, that's totally Jobsian.
They'll have
be
the
like,
book of
what
Jobs
does that mean?
somewhere.
The question is, what will it mean? Will it mean Machiavellian? Will it mean evil? Will it mean life is nasty, brutish, and short, and I am the king? What will Jobsian mean? Listen to these quotes. This is, again, from 60 Minutes, and Walter Isaacson talking. He says he could be very mean to people at all times, whether it was to a waitress in a restaurant or a guy who had stayed up all night coding. He could just really go at them and say, you're doing this all wrong. It's horrible. And you'd say, why did you do that? Why weren't you nicer? And he'd say, I really want to be with people who demand perfection, and this is who I am. Isaacson says he got it from his adopted father, Paul Jobs. He tells the story. Once they were building a fence, and he said, you got to make the back of the fence that no one will see just as good looking as the front of the fence. That will show you're dedicated to making something perfect. He also said Jobs could have been one of the world's worst managers. Now, I think there's no question, and Jean-Louis Gasset says this in his blog, that Apple's one of the best-run companies out there in terms of, and maybe that's Tim Cook, maybe that's others. Isaacson says he was always upending things, throwing things into turmoil. They made great products, or it made great products, but it didn't make for a great management style.
Well, what's more important, management or leadership? I think that Steve Jobs may not have been a good manager because he wasn't a people person. He didn't suffer fools gladly. But as a leader, a decision maker, I think he was one of the top ones. And he surrounded his people. Great leaders surround themselves with great people so they can get things done. His collection of, and this is why I've said over and over again that Apple will be fine, because he surrounded himself with top-notch people who understood what to do, who understood how to execute and realize Steve Jobs' vision and sometimes improve upon it or expand it. So I think, when we talk about managers are sometimes this thing about how do you manage people? How do you make them feel? And clearly Steve Jobs didn't care about how he made people feel. Right.
He talks about all the money people made in the early days of Apple. He said they'd buy big houses, big cars, get face job, get plastic surgery. Yeah. And he says, I don't want to be like that.
Well, maybe it is the Machiavellian, do the ends justify the means? Does the fact that my phone is this amazingly slick computer justify the fact that Jobs made a bunch of people at Apple cry? Maybe.
Well, no. He was he's a perfectionist, so it stands to reason that in everything he does, when he interacts with them, he probably demands a similar level of competence. And
right.
It's not out of the realm of reason to be.
He seems really arbitrary. Like when he told John Doerr that his dinner menu was too fancy and he didn't want to have a cream pie because he thought that
this is
was
for the
too
Obama
rich.
dinner.
And then Obama, again, the Obama Jobs power struggle, which is amazing.
He has the nerve to say to President Obama, "I'm going to do your campaign ads for 2012 because these ads suck. You're going to be a one-term president."
One-term.
You don't have too many. You don't have his problem with Obama is people don't dislike you enough. People need to dislike you more. Arbitrary.
That's Jobsian.
There are people in this world who don't understand other people's feelings, right? They don't. They actually have.
They're called sociopaths.
Well, no. Sociopaths are people who don't care. It's like Asperger's. Isn't it like Asperger's syndrome?
Well, I think it's the same thing as not understanding people's feelings. It's kind of. It's like Dexter. We got a fly in here.
We have a fly.
I don't understand that fly's feelings. I'm going to kill it. It's like Dexter. It's you know that there are feelings. You can even understand that the feelings exist, but you don't share those feelings.
You don't relate to them.
You don't relate. You don't
can't appreciate.
Why do you think Jobs was now? This is talk about post hoc psychology.
Yes. Was Jobs a sociopath? Chat room?
Yeah. Question.
Oh, geez.
No. I don't.
Could you build products like that without having empathy, though? I mean, his whole thing was bringing the humanities and the arts and things that deal specifically with emotion. If he was a sociopath, he was the one that really had an intricate understanding of human emotion. Or you couldn't build these kind of things. These are like people.
But sociopaths are notorious for that. Yeah. They can manipulate people.
But he built what he loved, right? Then he built each time the products that he built were ones that he wanted. It was always about what does Steve want? What would Steve use? Right. And then and a lot of he actually said he didn't spend time studying the consumer audience. He didn't go out there and market test things. He said, this is what appeals to me. And if it appeals to me, well, certainly it's going to appeal to the rest of the world. He had what you would call excellent taste.
We were talking before the show. He did have excellent designer's eye, designer's taste. But I was, I've been thinking about all this. And one thing that kind of bugs me, Macs have notoriously been bad. They have the worst sound effects of any computer in history. The stupid-ass sound effects you can choose from on OS X, even the latest version of Lion, these sound effects are crap. And I'm starting to think that, among other things, he had a great eye, but he had no ear. These are the worst.
Do purr again, because that's hilarious.
Purr is this? Who thinks this is a good sound effect? That's so Sumi. But this is Lion. Yes, these are the same as in System 7.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
He
That
could
one
have
was
hired Bono for crying out loud.
He never played.
He
an
always had
instrument,
great, at his events, he always had great musicians. So it's odd, right?
He liked music.
Coldplay and I forget the name of the other.
John Mayer.
John
What a
Mayer, who he also criticized.
Did he?
Yes.
What did he say
He
about
said
John?
he's out of control. Chops had a
Wait,
lot of
out of
opinions.
control at what point?
I have no idea. He just said
he said
that he's
stuff.
a good artist, but he's out of control. He's basically a mess.
You know,
can't
they had
fathom
Kanye
why.
West on the stage of one of these announcements, and he thinks John Mayer is out of control.
Yeah, exactly. This book is portraying
can't
him as
wait.
like a very
Don't you-
gossipy, petty person.
Okay, show of hands. How many of you set aside the entire day tomorrow just to read this book? 600 pages. That's
if I
all I'm going to
could.
do.
Yeah,
all
I'll
day.
read the book.
Yeah.
If
Wish
I
I
could
have
just
no
do
idea.
that.
My
It'll
work is
arrive
reading
on my
the book.
Kindle. I guess it'll arrive on my Kindle tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Or what? Yeah.
Oh, that's a good idea. If you pre-ordered it, I guess it'd arrive at midnight.
Is arriving okay? So is reading this thing on a Kindle, Lance? Do you think it's kind of,
Right. You know what'll happen? Like
Somewhat
the words will
sacrilege.
keep
Somewhat
breaking up.
sacrilegious.
Right. It actually won't work, right? And then I'll get a face in e-ink of Steve Jobs saying, "What are you doing? This product sucks."
Stop
Stop reading on a Kindle?
He'll give you like a 2%
iPad.
discount on an iPad too.
Oh man, it's every person is a patchwork, good and bad mix, and of course, there's no way Steve Jobs was the perfect human being. It might have sounded that way the day he died, and we talked a lot about him. We did about 8 hours, but of course, he was a rich experience, and I think.
Rich.
I'm not going to make excuses for him, but at the same time, none of us is perfect.
Oh, he was who he was, and
He was
I
who he
think
was.
The problem is, especially after someone passes away, everyone tends to brush away anything negative because it seems rather unkind to someone who just died. So
Not
they
speak ill of the dead.
And
right?
so people tend to heap praise upon praise because they feel that's the right thing to do. And you're going to be a jerk if you say, well, yeah, he's a grade a-hole to half his company, and he wouldn't listen to reason. He argued with the president, or he wanted to argue with the president about his campaign in 2012. It's all these things that over time. Pick any public figure, and immediately when Reagan, when he passed away, everyone was giving him high praise, even though 10 years before that people were like, well, geez, Reaganomics really screwed over the country, and that's why ketchup was labeled as
It's
a vegetable.
interesting because we had Leander Kani of the Cult of Mac on that day, and he was saying some of the negative things, and everybody was a little bit shocked because there is that kind of idea. You don't say anything bad about the dead. In fact, it's a Latin saying, "De mortuis nil nisi bonum." But wow. But
Hardcore, dude.
but apparently in Britain, the standards for obituaries are very different than here in the U.S. In the U.S., we tend to just say the good things. In Britain, they love to bring up the dirt, and that's what Leander's British, of course. And we're going to take a break and come back with more. What a great panel. We're going to rush through all the next stories so you guys can go watch 60 Minutes. Lance Ulanoff is here, editor-in-chief of Mashable magazine. Alexia Tsotsis. Am I saying it Tsotsis right?
Tsotsis is fine.
Tsotsis.
You ask me every time, and I tell you.
I don't feel like it doesn't sound right.
Alexia,
Tsotsis.
yeah, it doesn't sound right, but that's how it sounds.
It sounds right to you because
Yeah,
that's your name.
It is my name.
I saw your passport from 10 years ago. It's so cute to
Thank
see
you.
your new passport.
I was growing out a shaved head.
Is that what it was? Because you had little curly...
It was just like...
You had shaved it?
Yes. I was a very rebellious kid.
Wow.
I know.
You saw Sinead O'Connor do that, and you said, I want to look like Sinead?
I just didn't like hair. Thought it was really gross. Greece is a hot place.
And you were
easier
in
that way.
Greece?
I was in Greece.
Did you grow up in Athens? Where'd you grow up?
In Athens.
In Athens, the big city.
The big city.
Wow. Probably a lot of people shave their heads in Athens. It's
A lot
very
of
common.
guys shave their heads in
Yeah.
Athens.
Not many
but
women.
Not many women.
Nope. Alexia is a writer for TechCrunch. I'll tell you how dedicated she is. She just blogged, like 5 minutes ago.
No, I didn't just blog.
You didn't post it?
I wasn't fast enough.
You
Sorry.
tried.
I will be blogging. I will be blogging after this.
What's the big story you're covering?
Oh, Dogpatch Labs is getting a new home.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not au courant with the hipster community in San Francisco, so I don't know.
It was one of the companies that got kicked out of the Pier 38.
Oh yeah, when they
Yeah.
condemned the pier.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
So they're going to
There's
Palo
a story.
Alto. Congrats, San Francisco.
You
made them
threw
good.
'em out.
Yeah, you threw them out. There
What
you
does
go.
Dogpatch Labs do? What do they make?
They're like
Incubator.
Well, they're not really an incubator. They're like an office space set up by Polaris Ventures.
Okay.
think they had over.
So if you're a startup, you'd go in there, you'd hang out, you'd meet Kevin Rose, you'd have a cup of coffee, and then you'd go out inspired.
Or you'd work.
Or you'd work.
Or you'd work.
No, nobody works in Silicon Valley. Roger Chang is also here. He works hard keeping Patrick Norton in line.
Yes.
On Techzilla.
Fortunately, he has jury duty next week, so I'll have Veronica and Robert all week.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah.
And, of course, East meets West. You still do that. You don't do it on TWiT anymore because you guys decided you didn't want cameras.
That, and it was just easier to fit into our schedules because they get...
That's right. We always put you on right after TWiT, and it was just kind of a pain in the ass.
But it's great, and we tend to argue about a whole bunch of stuff.
I love that show.
So
it's a show about nothing.
It's about everything.
Actually, it's good we moved you, because starting in about a month... right after this show, we're going to have our gaming show, which I hope you'll... Now, here's the deal on that. We've got two great hosts. I can't tell you who they are because they haven't announced it yet. But once they announce it, we'll tell you. We're going to do... It's going to be like kind of Sports Center. We haven't picked a name for it, but we're going to do that. And then afterwards, we're going to have a LAN party like we used to on the Screensavers.
Oh, sweet.
And I'd love... Like, when you come up to do TWiT, stick around. I'll take you to dinner, and we'll go play in the LAN party. You know what we're going to call the LAN party? Shut Up and Play. What do you think?
I like the shut up part.
Shut up and play. And also here, it's really good to have you, Tim. Tim Stevens, who is the editor-in-chief of Engadget. You took Joshua's place.
I did indeed, yes, back in April.
So you and Alexia work for Ariana.
Yes, we
do indeed.
How's the new job treating you?
You liking it?
Fantastically, yeah, I love it.
I'll give you an idea. He's about 300 miles away right now.
Do you talk to Ariana a lot?
No, I don't. I've probably had maybe 4 or 5 meetings, I think, with her total since I started. So no, don't have a lot of interaction with her at all.
Tim, darling, you know what I'd really like the Engadget to cover. There's some really great gadgets in the field of purses and purse alarms. I'd like you to do more of that, Tim, if you would.
I didn't realize she was German.
I don't know what she is. She's Greek. Ariana
She's
Stasinopoulos Huffington.
Greek, but probably did not have a shaved head when she was.
Oh, I
No.
wouldn't be surprised.
The last time I
probably
had
had one when
interacted
she
with
was
her,
an
actually,
adult.
she needed a new. She wanted to get the new BlackBerry 9900 Bold, but she wasn't sure if we'd be able to get it on our network. So we helped her out a little bit.
I hope you talked her out of it.
Yeah, I hope you talked her into an iPhone.
Ariana, you need an iPhone.
She's addicted to BlackBerry. She's definitely on the Crackberry. So she loved the phone, and we were able to help her get it on AOL's network.
Wow. It's nice to have some geeks in the building. Thank you for being here, Tim. We appreciate it.
Call, yeah, absolutely.
So we're going to take a break. Before we do, let's see what Mr. Tom Merritt. I'm going to throw you, Eileen. I'm going to give you a chance now. I'm going to talk really slowly so Tom can rush over to his chair and sit down. Tom Merritt, as you know, is the host of Tech News Today. Was he here this week? Did he record the week ahead?
He recorded something, I believe.
Okay.
Here we go.
So here we go. Tom Merritt, what's ahead this week?
Hey, thanks, Leo. Here's a look at some of the stories we'll be keeping track of in the week ahead on Tech News Today. Of course, today, Sunday, October 23rd, is the 10th anniversary of the announcement of the iPod.
Yay.
Happy 10-year-old birthday, iPod. Monday, October 24th, Netflix announced their earnings. There are going to be a lot of eyes on this one with all the Quickster controversy. Also, the Steve Jobs biography, that's the official biography by Walter Isaacson, comes out. Tuesday, October 25th, Battlefield 3 arrives, so expect a lot of people to call in sick that day. Wednesday, October 26th, Nokia World kicks off in London. We should hear about the Windows phones from Nokia at that time. Also, Samsung Galaxy Tab 10.1 coming to T-Mobile. We still don't know the price on that one. Thursday, October 27th, Motorola Droid Razr pre-orders begin. And Friday, October 28th, the iPhone 4S goes on sale in 22 more countries. That's a look at what we'll be looking at in the week ahead. Back to you, Leo.
Tech News Today, 2:30 p.m. Pacific, 5:30 Eastern, Monday through Friday. Of course, if you can't catch it live, you can, with Ayaz Akhtar and Sarah Lane and Tom Merritt, you can always download it from twit.tv. Audio is almost immediately available. Video takes a little longer. You know how that is.
Definitely.
Video, you got to squinch it and crunch it and do all sorts of stuff. Hey, before we go on, I'd like to mention our friends at Citrix. They do, of course, and we've talked about it many times before, the great GoToMeeting program. That's the program that lets you do online meetings, and they have a big announcement. GoToMeeting now is available on iPhones and Android phones. So that means you have to hold the meeting on a Mac or a PC, but your attendees can be using iPads, iPhones, Android devices, tablets, and phones to attend that meeting. They could be in the men's room or the women's. They could be anywhere. They could be on a train, on a plane, on a bus. As long as they can get online, here's what you do. You go to GoToMeeting.com, click the Try It Free button, and use the offer code TWiT when you sign up. You get 30 days free. Then, on your iPad, your iPhone, your Android mobile device, download the free app And you can join those meetings. You can hold those meetings. GoToMeeting's fantastic. The new HD Faces app is so cool. They've added video to GoToMeeting. So, of course, it's always had screen sharing, but now it's also got video built into it. Now, I don't know. I haven't tried. I have to try this. I think you have to have a PC or a Mac to do the video. I don't think you can use you do? Yeah. So you can't use the phone or the tablet. Maybe you can use the tablet for the video. I think it's PC or Mac. But it really is great quality video. And, of course, you see the video on the portable device. GoToMeeting, it's a great way to do online meetings. It's all we use here. Wherever you are, you can attend meetings on your portable device. iPhone, iPad, and yes, now, Android and tablets, too. GoToMeeting.com. Click the Try It Free button. Use the offer code TWiT. You're going to love it. Good video on that, by the way. Really good video on that. All right, let's move. Are we done with Steve Jobs?
Yeah, we'll be back to
What's
Steve
your favorite? Yeah, we'll be back. Anybody, you got a favorite anecdote or quote from this book that we haven't mentioned yet? There's so many of them.
I love when he tells Bill Clinton to tell the country about Monica Lewinsky.
He said that?
Yeah, he said you have to tell the truth. I don't know if you
This
did it
from
or
the
not.
guy who denied that he fathered a girl out of wedlock for a decade. He
Maybe
would.
that
He
was
said.
his
In
guilt.
fact, he even said. He even told the world. Maybe that's where he's coming from. He has some experience. He said, "No, I'm sterile. I couldn't have fathered her." And shortly after that, he had 3 children. So great, Steve. Tell the world about Monica. This was much later too, right? This wasn't even.
No, I think this was during a late night phone call during the trial. Steve told Bill,
Wow.
"You have to tell."
He's coming.
the
It's almost
country."
Nixonian.
He's like hypocrite. It should be called Steve Jobs hypocrite.
So does he have just like a White House line, or had a White House line?
Apparently,
There's
he
like
had a
backbone
pipeline.
That's
to-
kind of cool.
To Cupertino.
It's like you have to
Maybe-
finish dinner.
maybe
It's like, I'm going to call Bill Clinton.
It's amazing.
Maybe
No, I'm gonna
Clinton
call
was
Steve
calling
Jobs.
for tech support.
By the way,
By the way,
Yeah. Hey, Bill. I'm sorry. I was going to do a Bill Clinton.
it was good.
Steve, I can't figure out how to use this phone. I want to call Monica. Yeah, you should just tell everybody about Monica. No, Steve, I just want to use the phone. No, you should just tell everybody about Monica. No, but I just want to use the phone. I did not have.
Use the phone to tell everybody about Monica.
I did
Use
not
the phone.
have 3G with this phone.
I did not have 3G on this phone. You got any barbecue? Apple posts, we might as well say this to kind of fill it out. Apple posts its earnings, $6.62 billion profit, $28.27 billion in revenue, 11 million iPads sold, 17 million iPhones sold, and Wall Street was disappointed.
I think people are just disappointed in Wall Street.
I guess what happened was they thought they'd be selling more iPhones, but there was a slowdown as people got ready for the next generation. So big deal. They sold 4 million iPhone 4Ss in a weekend.
I mean, Apple's internal projections were, their guidance was 25 billion in revenue, and Wall Street's expectations was like 29 or something.
And they
So
got 28.
They got 28.
And so
I don't
Wall Street's
understand.
disappointed.
Wall Street. We should, you know, have expectations for Wall Street and be disappointed.
I know. I'm disappointed with Wall Street.
Well, look at the iPad story. 40 million units total sold. And I'm sorry, how many Zooms sold?
Right.
How many Galaxy Tabs sold? Actually,
6 million.
probably they sold more. HP probably sold more touchpads than some of the other competitors, but no one's even close. I mean, it feels a little bit right now like it's game over. I mean, those numbers, you just can't ignore them.
Yeah. You know, today is the 10th anniversary of the iPod, which is kind of amazing. I remember very well. You remember? You guys might be too young. Lance, I know you would remember. 2001, September 2001. Did you go down to Cupertino to see the iPod launch?
I did not at the time. You know, it's right before that. I remember the 2 years before that where the whole industry was trying to figure out MP3 players. You know, we had a bunch of software-based stuff. Everybody was downloading software. And, you know, there had been things like something called a jukebox out, you know, various companies going in there. And it was all just failures. And
I had a Diamond Rio.
oh, yes.
That was my
yes,
first
sure.
MP3 player, well before the iPod.
Yeah, a lot of people had those. And they were fairly popular, but nobody had the right software to go with it. And no one really, you know, it's funny because a lot of times with Apple, you don't know what you need until Apple tells you.
Yeah.
And no one really understood that if you made this sort of ecosystem, if you created the software and the hardware almost together, that was going to propel it forward. Because, you know, it made it super simple for people to find the music. And don't forget those deals that he made. You know, the fact that he got the music industry to work with him, and they were terrible terrified back then. They didn't know what the hell was going on. He got them to work with him. If he hadn't done that, it would not have been the success that it turned out to be. But still, they ended up creating that industry, which couldn't seem to figure out its ass from its elbow from 1999 to 2001.
Very similar to the smartphone situation where you had a lot of smartphones, but nobody loved their smartphone. And then Apple comes along and really changes it. Mike Elgin wrote a great article in Cult of Mac, How the iPod Started 5 Revolutions. I thought it was fairly insightful. The one-song revolution, it was, you know, we used to have to buy albums. It was thanks to the iTunes and the iPod, you could buy a cut. Now, musicians hated that because they were selling whole albums just for the one good song, but it was great for consumers. The online store device revolution, he said, and Amazon's benefiting from this. The tablet is storefront. The App Store revolution, the iTunes concept, was re-envisioned by Apple as the App Store, the now standard model for buying software. The touch revolution, he points out the first iPod, you remember this, had a rotating click wheel, but they very quickly went to one that didn't move.
Touch.
He says when the mechanical wheel gave way to the capacitive sensing wheel, users got kind of conditioned to this idea of touch. Apple got excited about it and was eventually what inspired them to do the touch interface. And finally, the media appliance revolution, the idea of appliances specifically for media, and God knows the TV would be one of those, certainly the iPad, the iPhone, the iPod, and yes, even the Zune. So it's been an interesting 10 years. It really, the world has changed quite a bit thanks to the iPod.
Well, it was my second year of college when, which means I'm old, but when this thing
please. I was working with Leo in 2001.
But I remember.
You know, do you remember Jim Louderback went down to Cupertino and he brought back, in fact, I still have it, the original. Could somebody get me that original? Chad, it's in my museum back there. I bring it out every once in a while. 10 years old. He brought it back, said, this was when Apple still liked me. Here, they wanted you to have this. Firewire charging. So you were in college.
I was in college.
Did you remember? Was this in Greece or was this in the U.S.?
No, this was here. This was in L.A. And I remember it being so cool. But the iTunes Store didn't launch, which is the real innovation here.
Right.
It didn't launch until 2003. So I feel like we were Napstering a hell of a lot between
almost everything on here
is from Napster.
is from Napster.
I feel like
fired this up.
My music collection is from Napster.
Look how thick it was, and remember it had FireWire charging.
That is so huge.
And this was only 5 gigabytes, right? But the whole idea of this was it's your music collection in your pocket, 1,000 songs in your pocket. And this is the one that still had that. This is a physical wheel that rotated. Remember, it was green. Boy, that's it. That's 10 years old.
Yeah, I thought the iTunes was first, then the iPod was second. They were together within the same year.
I don't remember.
I thought the iPod was first and then the iTunes.
iPod was first and iTunes Store was 2003.
Okay. Oh, it was 2 years later.
2 years later.
Well, how did you get stuff on this thing?
No, you used
burned CDs, right?
Well, you didn't have an iTunes Store, but you had iTunes, the interface that you used.
Right.
Yeah,
The
you put
interface
stuff
with the
into iTunes and then
and so
poured it in.
So the big thing was really ripping your CDs or music you already had from somewhere. Well, I mean,
you know, the truth is, really, the revolution was Napster.
Well, it was
that was really when the revolution happened. That's when I got excited about music again. I downloaded 10 gigabytes of music for free.
So Apple's original press release, June 9th, 2001. June 9th, 2001, Apple introduces iTunes, and what they called it, this was funny because this was something I'd read when I was doing some research. They called it the world's best and easiest to use jukebox software.
Yeah.
So that was January 9th, 2001.
They bought a company. That's where it came from.
That's right. That's right. And then that following year, I believe the September of that year is when the first iPod came out.
But could you buy music on iTunes I think they didn't have a store yet. That's what the confusion is.
You couldn't buy music through iTunes.
It was about importing. It was about importing music into basically ripping songs. Right. So that was primarily it. But then the second piece of it with the iPod and music deals that came, I believe, later in the year.
So the program that Jeff Robin I've talked to since then. The program that they bought was released by Cassidy and Green 10 years before that. In 1990, it was called Sound Jam. Remember that? And that was the basis. Apple purchased it in 2000, the basis for iTunes. But you're right, it didn't have a store in it yet.
Right.
I feel like a bunch of
Apple
old guys
just-
talking about when the first automatic transmission came out.
Yeah.
Well, it's like that. Okay, so it's like that video that Lance posted on earlier this week of the baby swiping the magazine pages, hoping that something, hoping that something would change. And that's how our kids are going to be. Our kids are going to look at this and be like, "Why isn't it invisible?"
Right. What, it's
Yeah.
too
Why
bad.
is it invisible?
There is that great story. There's a great story of Steve Jobs. This is also from the book, and the first prototype for the iPod. And they brought it to him. You know, I'm sure those meetings are very tense. Mr. Jobs, here's what we think you'll want to release as the iPod. And he looks at it. He says, "It's too big." They said, "We can't make it any smaller. This is his." He takes this prototype. There's probably only one of them, right? Throws it in a fish tank. It sinks to the bottle. Bubbles rise up. He says there's air in there. See, get rid of it. Make it smaller. So, wow. There's no air in there apparently. All right, let's move on. We've talked enough about Apple. Let's talk about Android. Well, what's that? Is this the next generation? We've got all the generations here. Look at this.
Holy cow.
Memories.
He really got us addicted to
on
this
the
stuff.
corners. These are all mine?
This
or?
is when the addiction
The
starts.
Nano.
So it's like now
And then
you
remember,
needed
watch,
the
now look at
beveled
these.
one.
Look how
at
nice
this.
these are. This is the first Nano, remember? Then look at this. Dell's response. Yeah.
No, that was Dell's second response.
Do you remember
I
when
purchased
Dell
Dell's
said
first
that they
response.
should
That's right.
shut Apple down and sell the stock
That's
to
lovely.
shareholders?
Can you charge that up?
Yeah.
That was about the time that Michael Dell said that. He said,
He
look
said
at
it in '98, or he said it in '97.
Oh, that's right. And he was right in 97. Apple was days away from bankruptcy at that time, actually. This looks a lot like the Diamond Rio did. Somewhere I have a Diamond Rio in my collection as well.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Those were interesting.
Those are fun. All right, let's talk about, there was a big announcement. Was it this week? Oh, hard to believe.
It was amazing.
Tuesday.
You were in Hong Kong, Tim, for this.
Yeah, I flew out Monday morning to Hong Kong and got back Thursday afternoon. So yeah,
Oh my
it's
God.
been a long week.
You must be exhausted. This was the deferred announcement. Samsung and Google were going to make this announcement earlier, but decided that because of Steve Jobs' death, they didn't want to announce the new ice cream sandwich Android 4.0 operating system and the first phone to carry it, which is the Samsung Galaxy Nexus. So you spent about an hour with the Nexus. Tell us about it.
Yeah, the earliest side shot that they had in that teaser picture where they said something big is coming, the screen was so curved it almost looked like a banana, but the actual device that
No,
we see is
really?
definitely not that curved. Yes.
It's that curved?
It's not that curved, actually.
Which,
I'm not sure
does
what
it
they
curve
did
towards
in
the right or the left?
We call that how it dresses, I believe.
Straight and true. It dresses straight and true. It's no more curved than the Nexus S that came before, actually. But you know, so it's the same sort of experience there. It doesn't really feel that much different, but it is considerably thinner. It's about 9 millimeters, which does shave quite a bit off of the Nexus S and certainly the Nexus S 4G. A big talking point this week has been the nature of that display. It's got a 720p OLED display, which is great, but it's using the older pentile pixel makeup, which means it's instead of RGB, it's RGBG, which basically means there are.
Wait a minute, the Bee Gees are in this?
Yeah, crazy, right? Basically, it means there's 50% more green pixels than any other color. So that means that the color reproduction is going to be a little bit off on this. But it's not going to be as noticeable as it was. The original Galaxy S had a display like this.
So did the Nexus 1, right? This was the pentile display on the Nexus 1 as well.
Yeah,
and I
it was
didn't
the
think that was
Galaxy
a bad
S2 that
display.
introduced the Plus.
I thought it was good. I did hear people complain about color cast, a green color cast in it, but
Right.
I thought it was a good display. Now, the Galaxy S2 is stunning. It will not be as
Absolutely.
good as the S2.
No, the Galaxy S2 introduced the AMOLED Plus,
Right.
and that's what got rid of this pentile type of layout. So unfortunately, it's a bit of a step back in terms of the actual makeup of the display. But one of the problems with the Galaxy S was the resolution was so much lower. Since we're talking 720p, I don't think it's actually going to be that noticeable for people in terms of the quality of the image. But the color is definitely going to be a bit greenish, I think.
This is really, I mean, this is a 4.65-inch screen, 1280 by 720. I mean, that's like a computer's monitor resolution.
Yeah, it's full, you know, well, not full HD, it's technically 1080p, but it's a 720p image. So if you download an HD movie, you can watch it, you know, without losing any pixels, without any cropping, without any barring.
So, Tim, you saw it. I mean, what is your sense of it? I mean, you looked at it for an hour. Did it seem green to you?
It was a bit greenish. I mean, honestly, we were more focused on the hardware, the thinness, the performance of the camera. You know, they were talking about a zero shutter-like camera, which was actually very impressive as well.
The speed of the camera,
yes,
the speed of the camera,
it's unbelievable.
Wow. I mean, I thought the iPhone 4S.
We did a back-to-back.
Yeah, I saw that video.
Back test for the 4S, and the Galaxy Nexus is slightly quicker. I mean, at this point, it was kind of splitting hairs. The 4S is very quick. Galaxy Nexus is slightly quicker, but it's much quicker than just about any other Android device. I mean, the Bionic just launched, and that is one of the slowest taking.
Bionic is like 3 seconds between pictures. It's unbelievably bad.
But as quickly as you can tap the screen, it'll take pictures. That's quite an improvement.
Well, and I think that this is important if we believe, and I think we do, that these phones are going to replace point-and-shoot cameras.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. But we have quite a few questions. I mean, one thing is the software was very buggy. We saw at least 4 different builds of Ice Cream Sandwich running on different devices, some of which were in different, states of disarray. Some were crashing, some were not doing, like the Google Beam functionality, which lets you exchange things wirelessly over NFC.
Nobody's going to do that.
Yeah, I'm a little bit leery about that too. I mean, HP made a big deal about that with the touchpad in the Pre-3, and at that point, we didn't think it was going to be anything big because how many people were going to buy touchpads and Pre-3s? Now, of course, you'll have much more Android devices around, and you can, in theory, use it more commonly. But even then, I just don't see walking up to somebody and saying, "Hey, check out this webpage, donk."
Don't you have to have an NFC chip in there for that to work?
You do, but I think that
so. There's only 2 phones you can do that with.
Very few phones. There are a few others that have NFC built in, but like the T-Mobile Galaxy S2 has NFC as well.
Oh, right.
So
that's it.
It's getting to be more common, but certainly right now it's a rarity. But I think Google's going to make Google Wallet a big push there. So I think that we'll be seeing that in quite a few more devices going forward.
I do like the thin, and I think that that's one advantage that right now Android, especially Samsung, has over the iPhone. The iPhone, as slick and beautiful as it is thicker.
Right.
And heavier.
Yeah. Android is definitely, Android devices, they're making some interesting pushes for bigger screens and thinner devices, which I think a lot of people want. That was one of the biggest disappointments that a lot of people had when, all that we got was the 4S from Apple. A lot of people wanted a bigger screen and a thinner device.
But they want
Android is offering that. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to be jumping ship from one camp to the other, but there's definitely a lot of disappointment there. So Samsung's giving you a bigger screen for sure, but it is a very big screen. I mean, 4.7 inches just about. That's a big display. There's not a lot of bezel, but it's still a big device.
The other thing that
it feels like a big device. That's what I was wondering, like how it feels in your hand.
It doesn't feel. It feels actually smaller than the current the Nexus S because it's a bit thinner, but it is still a wide device. So it depends on the size of the pockets in your skinny jeans whether or not it's going to be comfortable. But I mean, I've got pretty big hands, so it feels good for me. But if you've got smaller hands, I can definitely see this as being a little bit too big.
The Razor, the Droid Razor came out last week as well, and that's actually thinner. 7.1 millimeters.
Jeez Louise.
Right, 7.1 millimeters. And actually, they used a different kind of construction. So it's one of the lightest, smartphones, like 4+ inches smartphones I've ever felt. It almost felt, and I didn't, I kind of hesitated to say this, but it was so light. The way it felt was slightly toy-like. It didn't feel like there's something about a device when you hold it, these smartphones, that you want to feel a tiny bit of heft. You actually don't feel that. It's got a Kevlar back. It's got sort of this aluminum body. It's very, very different. But wow, talk about thin.
The thing I'm interested, there's a psychological effect when you have a big screen. If it's thin and light, it's not, kind of doesn't feel like a big phone. It just kind of even with the big screen. But the thing I'm most interested in is pixels per inch. Is this going to be the resolution of the iPhone 4, which is this incredible resolution? This is from Anand Tech, pixel density comparison, effective pixels per inch, and it looks like it's very close to the iPhone 4S.
It comes just a bit lower, but it's still above that 300 mark, which is supposedly the magic number for the ability for the human retina to recognize individual pixels. So, we've crossed that 300 threshold, which means that to the naked eye, you shouldn't be able to tell the difference between this one and the iPhone 4/4S.
Pretty impressive.
Subconsciously, though.
You'll know when you don't
15
have
or
an
so
Apple logo.
pixels
Feel cheated.
missing. I can tell.
Now, when you get to
Absolutely.
subpixels, and this is why Pentile, it's apples and oranges a little bit. When you get to subpixels, it's actually not as it's in a different status here. However, I think it's still going to look pretty good.
So this is the
color,
difference
right?
between counting RGB as a complete pixel versus R versus G versus B, and that's where you get this different ratio between the different pixel density. Basically,
and here it's actually worse than the Atrix and the Droid.
Right, that's actually stepping back to the old Galaxy S days when we had a much lower resolution. But I think in terms of effective resolution, I think it'll be a very clear picture for people. I don't think people will notice that too much.
Right.
I hope anyway. One of the biggest questions that I have, though, is battery life on this device. For the Droid Razr, they gave it an estimated talk time of, I think it was 12.5 hours, which is quite impressive. Nobody was talking battery life for the Galaxy Nexus, and we're a bit concerned that it's not going to be that hot. It's got LTE or HSPA Plus built in. We've seen HSPA Plus devices with good battery life, but we haven't really seen any LTE devices with good battery life beyond the promised Razr. So that's a big question on my mind: is what's the battery life in this thing going to be like?
Do you think we'll solve that? I mean, I remember 3G killed battery life early on.
Yeah. We definitely will solve that when we see more devices with integrated LTE radios. Right now, they're all separated, which means you've got extra, something else sucking down the battery life.
Right.
We think that's why the Razr's able to get improved battery life like that, because they finally integrated things. We won't know for sure until somebody tears it down and finds out. But that's what we think is going on inside the Razr. Inside the Galaxy Nexus, we just don't know at this point.
Are your readers reporting bad battery life on the 4S? It seems like it's much lower than it was.
If you use Siri.
Yeah. If you use Siri, is it Siri that's killing it?
They definitely are.
Or Find My Friends, or a lot of these other things that keep the radios turned on? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, quite a few of these things suck down data, but we're also having people report extra heat and lower battery life on their iPhone 4 since they upgraded to iOS 5.
It's iOS.
It certainly could be iOS 5 more so than the device itself.
Okay.
Doing more stuff in the background, doing all the things that Apple tried to avoid for a long time because they knew it would eat into battery life. By the way, I was going to mention on the Razr, when I sat down with the Motorola people at the event, I asked them about that battery life because they were not clear. They never said that was LTE, 4G battery life. They basically just gave us numbers. So I sat at a table and I said, so the numbers, are they 3G or 4G? And one guy said 4G and one guy said 3G. And I looked at him and I said, well, which is right? And they both looked at each other and it kind of, then they looked like deers caught in headlights. They didn't really respond. So finally they pointed over at some other table. And what that says to me is that, it's not. I'm telling you that, every experience that I've had and that I've seen with 4G it's a battery hog. And, they gave best circumstance numbers, which is almost always going to be 3G.
I solved it by putting a ginormous battery on my iPhone.
Now it looks like an iPod now.
Yeah. I mean,
look at that.
It's kind of disgusting. And then I also carry a car phone. I mean, a car battery with me back here, so I'm always ready. Only 50 more pounds, and I'm never without juice. I want to talk a little bit about C-Ray, the N9 with Windows Phone 7 on it. In fact, let's talk about Microsoft in general. Also, Yahoo. Apparently, Google, this seems hard to believe, might be mulling a bid for Yahoo.
Antitrust is not going to let that go through.
There's no way, right?
Well, wait, Yahoo's not really in the search business anymore.
Well, that's true.
They're not doing search.
We'll talk about that. And also,
in the next 5 minutes?
The Lytro.
We've got 5 minutes.
The Lytro camera.
I want one.
I don't want one. And
try and stick it in your pocket.
You and I will fight. It's like a kaleidoscope that's square. Just what I need. But we're gonna talk about that. You and I, we can fight. We can battle. Roger Chang and I. We'll strip down to our thongs and fight it out over the Lytro in just a minute. But first,
I wear boxers.
You don't wear a thong?
No.
Patrick told me you wore a thong. So let's talk.
It makes sitting very difficult.
It does.
Guys.
Alexis, are you in chat? They want to chat
Alexia.
with you.
No,
Alexia.
I'm not. No, but I do want to leave. The thong thing.
That was it? It made you nervous?
Nothing. There's nothing like an image of like a
guy in a thong.
A tech guy in a thong to.
Why is it just a tech guy? Why can't it be?
Roger's pretty buff. Look at that. This guy's in good shape.
Your girlfriend's in the audience.
Hey.
Does he wear a
She can
thong?
tell the truth, right?
Tech guy in a thong.
She says no.
No. We were doing Steve Jobs boxers or briefs earlier.
Oh, he's a briefs guy, don't you think?
No, boxers. Bill Gates briefs.
Briefs.
For sure. No doubt there.
Bill Gates had some nasty things to say about Jobs, too. He said you can't decide if he's trying to seduce you or
Screw you.
Screw you. Or
And
both.
you don't know which one you're going to get.
You know,
can
at
do
some
both.
point they all become the same.
Yeah. Let's talk about Ford. Why don't we? My Mustang's parked out front. Do you like to, you know, with everybody's talking about the Siri stuff where you talk to your phone? I've been talking to my Ford for ages. I say, set the cabin temperature 73 degrees. I say, play some Bob Dylan music. I say, where's the nearest gas station? I say, is there traffic up ahead? And it responds to me. You can talk to your car with Ford's great sync technology, and you add the My Ford Touch. And now you've got, I mean, it's like, it's so cool. You've got the big screen on the console there, too, behind the steering wheel. I love it. It's just little things, like the ability, I know you're into cars, the ability to set your cruise control. Normally on the cruise control, you're going a certain speed, you press a button, it says, okay, I'll remember that. On the My Ford Touch, you tell it what speed. You say, I want to go 67 miles an hour. And it says, it shows that it's so cool. It's little things like that, like the fuel is filter. And look at this, the newest thing in the Ford, they can turn your car into a Wi-Fi access spot. They've got Wi-Fi connectivity in the new 2012 Focus. All the new cars with the available sync in My Ford Touch will have this. They have USB ports, 2 of them on the My Ford Touch. One of them, you put the 3G thing in there, the 3G dongle in there, and now they've got antennas in the cabin, and you can get 5 people. It's a Wi-Fi access spot. Just wild, some of the stuff they're doing. If you want to know more, of course, take a look at the 2012 Ford Focus. We're going to have a barbecue. We're going to have the Focus here, aren't we? On November 13th, the first barbecue.
That's right.
During TWiT. We've talked to the Petaluma Police. They're going to block off the street here. We're going to have a tent. We're going to have a barbecue. Ford's going to bring, I don't know what cars, a bunch of cars, including, I'm hoping, my next car, the 2012 Ford Focus Electric. And you'll be able to take a look at it, take a look at all the amazing technology. We'll let you know how you can get tickets to this. It'll be like a golden ticket because there's not, you know, there's only 50 people could come, but we'll figure out a way to get you the golden ticket. Meanwhile, go to your Ford dealer or the website, ford.com/technology. You know, Alan Mulally, the CEO of Ford, came to Ford from Boeing. He's an engineer. He designed the 777 cockpit. This guy knows tech. He's made Ford into a 21st century car company. And I think it's just really exciting what he's done. We're really
He's
happy.
a really nice guy, too.
He is, isn't he? He's a sweetie. I just adore. He kissed me the last time not on the lips.
He was trying to
Was he
seduce
wearing
you?
a
Just a
thong?
cheek kiss. No, it was a nice kiss. It was sweet. He came up and he gave me a little peck on the. Probably shouldn't mention that in the ad. Ford.com.
Ford.com/technology.
Thank you, Alexia. Just a little. Remember that? Were you there, Eileen? It was in. It was at CES.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Maybe she just blocked
Maybe
it
I
from her memory.
might have dreamt it.
It was at CES.
Was
You
it
probably
CES?
didn't dream it.
What happens at CES, Leo?
That's
What happened
true.
at
Yes.
That's
at
true.
CES?
Are you? I'm a little hurt, you know, because we were lobbying. What are you laughing at? I'm a little hurt because we were lobbying to become the official podcast of CES, and I guess CES has decided to go with Spike TV is going to be doing official CES coverage.
You know what? There better be a UFC fight in the middle of
What the hell?
CES
What is
this year.
Spike TV?
What the hell?
Yeah, no.
Anyway.
Bad
that is
move.
wrong.
Is
Bad
that
move,
weird?
CES, that is really strange.
Well, and I
Doesn't make
think
any sense.
I don't understand it anyway. So Microsoft says we are flattered. So Steve Jobs says I'm going thermonuclear war on Android. Microsoft says, oh, we're flattered by similarities to the Windows Phone and Android 4.0.
I think they're happy someone mentioned their product at all. It's like, whoa, our name's been introduced. Say something nice.
One of the features of Ice Cream Sandwich is essentially the same thing Microsoft does with its People Hub on Windows Phone 7. It's a centralized hub with all your social media in it. I actually love the People Hub on Windows Phone 7. It's one of the nicest features. Tim, what did you think of Ice Cream Sandwich? You've handled it. You've played with it. I was underwhelmed, I'm afraid.
I was as well. I was hoping for more functionality, particularly more enterprise functionality, as all these companies are kind of scrabbling to pick up the scraps that RIM and BlackBerry are leaving behind. I was expecting to see maybe a better integrated Google Docs into the operating system, something like that. But what we got is basically better transitions, nicer animations. It's definitely a much nicer.
And the Roboto font.
Roboto font.
They spent half an hour talking about the font.
Yeah, they took Helvetica and kind of stretched it vertically a little bit, and that's basically that's basically a robot. I mean, it looks fine, but I wouldn't be trumping it up on stage quite that much. There's some nice features like the face unlock feature is kind of nice.
Yeah, except I don't think anybody's going to use the face unlock, because even if you look at their demo, it takes like 3 or 4 seconds. It has to look at you, take a picture, draw a circle around you.
There's something interesting about that, is that was a special build of Ice Cream Sandwich just for that demo that was programmed to not kick out of face recognition after. It normally kicks after about 2 seconds if it doesn't recognize you. But they had custom built this version of the operating system just so that it wouldn't do that, and just in case there was some problem recognizing Matthias. And indeed, there was a problem.
It didn't recognize
the demo, it didn't work at all.
Yeah.
Typically, after about 2 seconds, it'll jump out and it'll bring up the swipe pad or the number pad so you can type in your password that way. So it actually is much more convenient to use in real life than it looked on stage. That unfortunately was a very bad demo for a variety of reasons.
I feel like it just takes too long. I don't know if that's a gimmick. I don't know if anybody's going to use it. I was hoping, was anybody hoping for a Siri-like improved? I mean, voice commands have always been pretty good on Android. I thought they would respond. Lance, you're nodding.
Yeah, well, apparently they're not going to respond. They don't think it's important for the phone to be. Here's what's wonderful about Siri is that it is allowed to bring context to the voice recognition, because it's got its fingers in all that stuff on the phone that all of these phones have. Your contacts, your schedules, your reminders, all this stuff that's part of every single smartphone we have out there. And Google, of all people, knows this stuff. I mean, they have a Gmail system with contacts where, I'm able to I can plug into those contacts from virtually anywhere. So they've had voice recognition for a long time. I have tried it out. Why not bake it in further?
I don't understand. Or make it improve. Make it even talk back. In fact, Andy Rubin, in charge of Android at Google, said, "I don't believe your phone should be an assistant." It's like, not only are we not going to compete, we think it's the wrong direction. It's just nobody's going to want that.
We asked about this in particular. We talked to Matthias, who's the lead designer of Ice Cream Sandwich, Matthias Duarte, and he said basically that at Google they're going for the Star Trek approach, which is you ask the computer something and it gives you a response. At Apple, he likened Siri to the Star Wars approach, where droids are have personalities, you can speak with them, have conversations. He said that that's the wrong approach for your phone. Basically, he said that your phone should take a request and give you an answer, and that's the end of that.
It shouldn't talk back to you. It shouldn't interact with you in any way.
Shouldn't give you advice.
Right.
I think Ruben's just trying to be devil's advocate.
Well, let me ask. How many of you have used Siri kind of consistently? For Lance, you have. Alexia,
a little bit.
Yeah.
Tim, obviously. I've been using it all week. I have come to, I thought, there's always a toss-up. Is this going to be another FaceTime where it's a cool demo, but nobody's going to use it, or is this going to be actually of value? And I found it quite valuable. I actually think that Siri is a breakthrough. I think Andy's wrong.
It'll be a real breakthrough for me when it can do more things in a provider standpoint, when it can read me emails, when it can read me web pages, when I can sit in my car and have my inbox read to me rather than listening to NPR or listening to a podcast or something like that.
Yeah, no, I admit it's not tied into enough stuff, but at least just even setting reminders. I used it a lot for. What do you think, Alexia?
I think reminders
is great.
Is a game changer, and I don't think people have understood when you take location and time and cross them like that. You can say, okay, remind me when I walk into whatever conference room or whatever thing that I need to send an email to Leo.
Yeah, when I leave here, don't forget to pick up some milk. And it actually does that. It has a GPS, which is probably what's killing the battery, by the way.
It's absolutely. iOS 5 is what's killing the battery. I mean, it's running notifications constantly. I'm getting notifications from Yammer. I mean, there's apps that are Quora's telling me when people answer my questions. And then you have to go in the back end and shut everything off.
I have in fact done that. I've spent like an hour with notifications fine-tuning it. It really needs to be done. But
you should go into your location services too and turn off automatic GPS on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but nevertheless, I think, and I agree with you, Tim, it needs to be connected to more things, but even for the few things it's connected with, it's kind of a game changer already.
It definitely is. It's a big first step.
It's a first step, but I think Andy's wrong. I think I do want HAL 9000. I don't want Star.
And I think Google's going to have to respond. Google's going to have to bring this into Android at some point. Right now, there is pretty comprehensive voice recognition. You can set an alarm for 9 o'clock tonight, and it'll set an alarm. You can get directions by voice. So a lot of that stuff is there. It's just going to take another step to catch up to Apple, or 2 steps to step ahead of them.
And certainly Google can do it.
Forward to see where this goes.
There's no question Google can do it. It's just Go ahead, Lance.
And don't forget that Apple did something very simple. They added personality. People respond to personality. They all the sort of the silliness that's in Siri that people have used have really served a very important purpose. I think they've helped connect people to the technology and have made it that much more interesting. There've been countless stories online about the funny things that Siri will say. I almost feel like Apple, 100% planned that as part of the marketing push to get people to think about and talk about the technology.
I love it. We've got 4 minutes to the end of the Arizona game before 60 Minutes starts, Lance and Tim.
All right.
So we're going to do a couple more stories, and then we'll let you go.
I have a DVR, so if I'm a little late, that's okay.
It's like going to a movie late. They're going to be coming attractions, stuff like that. You can arrive a little bit late. Verizon, by the way, will be getting the Galaxy Nexus. You confirmed that on Engadget, Tim, today. So they were kind of unclear about date and time and all of that, but apparently Verizon will carry it. Did they say when? They just said later this year.
Nobody said anything more specific than November, but we're hearing November 10th will be the date for the Galaxy Nexus, and we're hearing October 27th will be the date for the Droid Razr. Those are unconfirmed at this point, but that's what we've heard.
The Razr sounds like the one you might want to look at.
Yeah, the Razr's coming.
Go ahead, Tim, first, and then Lance. Go ahead, Tim.
To me, it's going to come down to battery life. I mean, the NFC functionality in the Galaxy Nexus is something that I want going forward, but ultimately, whichever one has the better battery life, to me, will be the better phone, because the Razr will get ice cream sandwich sometime early 2012. So that that differentiation point is going to be gone soon.
Right. Lance?
Right, I was just going to say, I believe the Razr is scheduled so we got pre-orders, and I think it should be actually arriving in November. I thought they gave a date, but I can't quite find that. But yeah, it's pretty much scheduled to go. It's just interesting to me that there's just so many new phones, so many hot, big, thin, big screen phones, including the iPhone 4S, and I can't wait to see sort of which is going to be the leading phone this holiday season.
I mean, the iPhone 4S. Because,
you think?
Yeah, because of the mythology around it and Siri. But no. I think that what the Android phones need to do is differentiate themselves, kind of like this Nexus one was doing, around the camera. Because it's still very slow to take a photo with the iPhone 4 and the iPhone 4.
The 4S is pretty good.
4S is fast.
4S is 1.1 seconds to camera and half a second between shots. That's here. Watch. Okay, you got a shot of the. Here we go. Let's do this. 1001, 1002, 1000. Well, that's more than. And then go. Picture. That's pretty quick.
That's pretty speedy.
And very little latency. I think that this is good enough at this point. And I think the fact that you can use the top button, who I feel bad for? It's Camera Plus, because they were taken off the marketplace because they used the top button, and now they can't use the top button.
I know. Now, Leo, have you ever noticed, are the photos upside down? If you'd use that button and then you open them on your desktop, have you ever noticed that they're upside down?
Oh, no, but that would be a failure of the accelerometer, right?
I've seen that a couple. So they're fine when you look at them on the phone.
They look fine on the phone. I'll have to.
But then you offload them, because I've done this a few times when I did a whole story comparing the iPhone 4S camera to the iPhone 4, and when I was using the button to take some of the shots, because then you have a certain orientation, I looked at it, go to load them on the computer. I'm like, why are they upside down?
Well, you know what? I have PhotoStream turned on here.
Let's take
and in a minute or two, they will come down. We'll take a break and come back, and we'll see. We'll answer your question after you're gone. How about that?
Oh, that sounds so sad.
Well, it could be an improperly EXIF tag that's been put into it.
Is it an EXIF thing? Yeah. Or
is it a bottom button?
I don't know.
So,
are you?
I'm not familiar with it. I mean, maybe.
Is it a bottom? I don't know.
That's what. Is it
what
You'll have to ask it. Maybe Siri could tell you.
Why are my pictures upside
Are you
down?
a bottom or a top? Lance Ulanoff is the editor-in-chief of Mashable, and glad to be leaving right about now to go watch 60 Minutes. Thank you so much for being here, Lance. We think the world of you, and I look forward to having you back.
Thanks for having me on.
Always a pleasure, Lance. Anything you want to plug coming up in Mashable?
we're doing the Mashable Awards actually, which took off about about a week or so ago, and there you go in and you can vote for not just startups and technology, but TV shows and anything that's made a big digital or social difference this year, and it's going crazy right now. But definitely check it out. You can nominate once a day, so that's one of the big things. And then actually we've got a media summit coming up in New York where we're going to be talking about the state of media, and I just did a whole monster history lesson on our site about it. Because I'm so old, I can remember the history.
Awesome. Yeah, I like the Mashable Awards because you could basically, do you still do it this way? You pick your category. You just, it's kind of a free form awards. It's a little bit more structured this year. You'll notice. I think a little bit more sense to it, so it's easier to navigate and nominate the people that and things that you want. And are you gonna? Where are the awards going to be this year? We should be doing the event at CES.
Oh, yeah, because it was at Vegas. Yeah.
That's right. We'll be announcing the winners in December, and then we're going to have an award event at the show.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lance. Go watch TV.
Okay, thanks.
When we come back, we'll see how whether my pictures are tops or bottoms, how they're oriented. Because I turned on PhotoStream here, and it's starting to churn already. I don't even know where they end up going. To be honest, I haven't played with this yet.
To North Carolina, to the data center.
where somebody at Apple is reviewing each and every picture.
Do you know that Android phones have a function where they automatically upload them to Google Plus?
If you turn it on. But yes, I love that. But they're private.
It's great. Yeah, it's very helpful. We've been doing house shopping, and you can just upload all your pictures of all the houses that you look at, and they're all in one gallery. It makes it really easy.
The thing that's a little disturbing on this is this uploads it to every machine, iPad, and phone that has the PhotoStream turned on, and they're not private in the sense that anybody who owns those machines can see exactly what when you took a picture of your bum. So
is it automatic there? I haven't played with it at all.
It's only if you turn it on if it's automatic. But if you turn it on, as you can see, it's doing it right now. And we'll see what happens when we come back. But first, my friends, my dear friends, my sweet friends, my patient friends, it's time to mention our good friends at Audible.com. Audiobooks, you ever listen to them?
Nope.
See, a person like you.
I don't drive.
You don't have a car.
I have a car.
Do you
I
ever
just
go to
don't.
the gym?
I can't afford a car in San Francisco.
I know.
Eric?
It's crazy. I know. Mr. Schoenfeld, please pay this woman more.
I used to listen to audiobooks.
When you go to the gym, you could listen to it. How about you, Roger?
No.
You guys are a bunch of losers.
I like reading.
Tim, save me here. You like this is reading. This is reading. It's every single word that's in the book. Only it's like your mommy is reading to you.
I definitely don't.
No, you don't want that? I like it myself. Audible.com. It's not well if your mommy was like one of the great Broadway actors or something like that, or your mommy.
That would be awesome.
Because these books.
Was Leo.
Was she, Tim? Anything?
It's like if your mommy was Sean Connery.
She was an operator, though. So
no, I think that would be incredibly.
Who's your daddy? I am, and I'm going to read you a book right now. Audible. Shut up and go to sleep. Audible.com/twit2. So what is Audible? It's 75,000 titles. Not just books, but radio shows, performances. Look at the Winds of War. Now, that was a classic Herman Wouk novel. Loved that novel. It's probably really long. Yeah, 45 hours. Historical fiction about World War II. Very, very good book. This is the kind of thing, you listen to it and you get into it, and pretty soon your commute just disappears. It just goes away. In fact, you wish you could drive more. You wish you could work out more. You wish there were more dishes to wash, more carpet to vacuum, because you're enjoying it so much. That's what I love about Audible. It makes the time fly. And, by the way, you'll be surprised how many hours there are in the day that you just, you could be listening to books. I listen all the time. I love it. I want you to visit audible.com. Browse around. Look at all the books. Pick something that you want to listen. Actually, pick 2 books. That's what we're going to give you. 2 books. For free. Look at this, William Shatner's new book. If your mommy were William Shatner, would you listen to a book? Listen. I love
that would be a miracle.
I love Shatner. This is Shatner Rules, your key to understanding the Shatnerverse and the world at large.
I should love to have their name above the title, but my name was in the title. How could I turn that down? Rule: always be yourself.
See,
especially
you see how you listen to
Yeah.
No, that's exactly what he does at his panels at DragonCon.
Bing's the Bing?
No, he talks about all sorts of things about the Shatner world.
Perfect. The Shatner rule. So that's one. You like Penn Jillette? Sure, who doesn't like Penn and Teller, right? His new book is called God No. Signs you may already be an atheist and other magical tales. Now, Penn Jillette.
Professional dishwasher. I worked with a man named Harold. Harold sent in lyrics and the little bit of money he saved up to song poem companies that advertise in the back of
I got to tell you, it's like having Penn Jillette sitting next to you on your commute. That could be good or bad, depending on your attitude. I think it'd be great. The time passes like nothing. So here's the deal. If you go to audible.com/twit2, you'll be signing up for the Platinum account. That's 2 books a month. It's a subscription. It really is best to get a subscription. You don't have to, but it's a really good way to do it. How about this? Tina Fey. She could be your mommy.
Yes.
At least she's a woman.
I wouldn't mind.
Yeah. Here, you want to hear Tina Fey reading Bossy Pants? I love it because you can listen to any book ahead of time so you know what you're going to get.
Oshet Audio
Oh,
presents...
see, they start at the beginning, so I don't have the time. Chelsea Handler. Are you there, Vodka? It's me, Chelsea. So you'll sign up for 2 books a month. Your first month is free. Your first 2 books are free. I don't dare play this because it's laced with profanity, isn't it?
And lewdness.
And lewdness.
And vodka.
And vodka. They've got stuff in business, classics, fiction, history, kids. I don't know yet because it's not out, but I'm willing to bet that is it Random House, Simon Schuster, that's publishing the Steve Jobs biography. They will have it on here for sure, and that may be the best way to listen to the Steve Jobs biography. Just visit audible.com. Audible.com/twit2. Wait till midnight tonight to see if the Steve Jobs biography's on there. I bet it will be. They very frequently now get the books at the time they come out in the bookstore. Because I think the publishers now realize this is the way people like to listen to books. They like to read books is by listening. Audible.com/twit2. 2 books free. It plays on every device known to man, including, by the way, the Kindle. It's very cool. Audible.com/twit2. We thank them for their support of This Week in Tech. You really should listen to more audiobooks. It's really good.
When I get my car.
Well, you said you have a car.
I have a car. It's in L.A. San Francisco is so expensive for cars. You're paying like $200 a month in parking, and then a bunch of like $1,000 to
I know, it's crazy.
or to $2,000 for insurance.
And
yearly.
you don't get to get a ride with Roger Chang, Jolly Roger.
Thank you, Roger, for the ride. I really appreciate it.
Every time Alexia's here, she bums a ride with another host.
Because I don't. But I love driving. I miss my car.
But this is in L.A. It's not fun to drive here.
Even I love my car. I mean, I'm a speeder, so I get the thrill.
Speeder.
Parking tickets, or speeding tickets, so expensive. I mean, I love my car. I miss it.
Yeah, but everybody in L.A. loves their car. That's kind of a given. So the Lytro camera. Boy, there was a lot of attention when they announced this. This is the camera that lets you... Tim, explain the Lytro camera.
It's called a plenoptic system. Effectively, what it does is it manages to capture light at every focal depth, effectively. So instead of taking a picture and setting your aperture and setting your focal depth, you're effectively capturing all focal depths at once. And then at that point, you can go through and dynamically change focal depth after the picture has been taken. So if you want a shallow depth of field focused on a very close subject, you can do that. Or you can get a shallow depth of field focused on something farther away after the picture has been taken.
And I particularly love the ergonomic design.
It's like kind of like an overgrown lipstick or
kaleidoscope
or
a Viewmaster, right? It's like the slide viewers.
It's like the camera of the future because it doesn't look, it looks like a lot of things, but it doesn't look like a camera.
So how do you work it?
Well, you just take a picture, right?
Yeah, you look at the screen on the back and you hit the button on the top, and you really don't have to worry about focusing, obviously, because it's capturing every focal depth.
But now here's the problem. You can't look at this special picture unless you have special software, right?
Right. It's kind of like embedding a video onto your webpage or something like that. In order to view that picture and to share it with anybody else, you have to have a special embed code to share it. And at that point, whoever's viewing it can click anywhere on the picture, and it will focus dynamically on wherever you clicked effectively. So it's kind of like looking at your phone and taking a picture, tapping on the screen to refocus it, except you're looking at a picture that's already been taken, which is pretty interesting. And the results we've seen so far look pretty good. But it's one of those things. I think that we're going to need to spend some more time with it to test it out. We did get to go and play with the camera for a bit, but really you need to kind of live with these things and find out if they work. This was kind of the same idea as the extended depth of field cameras, which have multiple lenses that capture pictures at different depth of fields. They offer the same kind of impact, and the idea there was that you could have a much smaller camera construction for camera phones, that kind of thing. But what we found with those is that you effectively give up performance for close-in shots, specifically for macro shots. And, that's a fear that perhaps there'll be some kind of glaring problem with these kind of cameras as well.
It just strikes me as a huge gimmick. I mean, if you take a picture and want to print it or want to put it on Flickr, you're going to lose all of this. You have to pick some focal point. If you want to put it on Facebook, there's a player for it. And is this, I mean, how often do you want to do this? This is a special kind of...
It doesn't solve a problem.
It's a problem.
I've never had the problem, I wish this picture could randomly focus on this.
No. But see, I think you're looking at it the wrong way. If you imagine taking a picture in a situation where you don't have time to focus, you just want to, like, take a quick snap, say at a social gathering. You don't have to worry about whose face is where and what's...
Well, your other option is to shoot it at a high, f/22, and then everything's in focus.
Or pay attention to what you're shooting.
Oh, yeah.
I would pay $1,000 to Samsung, but not for my car. $1,000 to Samsung if they could stick an SLR on a phone. Something that.
Well, and we have this feature. In fact, you said it, Tim. It's just like the feature on the phone where you tap what you want to be in focus.
Yeah,
right.
Except you do it after the fact. What I'm most interested in is what this opens the door for down the road, because the big problem with watching a 3D movie now is you're effectively focusing on whatever the director thinks you should be focusing on.
Oh, great. I hope they have movies where I can choose what's focused.
No, but think about this.
What I need.
If you're wearing 3D glasses that can detect where you're looking, effectively the film could be refocusing dynamically based on where you're looking, so you would have a true 3D effect. Imagine that.
If you're not nauseous enough, now you can really get sick.
The world's population going to bed hungry, and then we're focused on finding different points of focus on a.
I can sleep okay at night.
It's just not something I think that this is. It got a surprisingly large amount of press because I guess it's got a high cool factor. I just think it's such a limited.
No. Think about it. You put in a Facebook. Say you take a picture of the audience here. They can go to Facebook and they can selectively focus their faces in the shot or whoever's face is in the shot, and that way anytime you click on whatever, you get that person's name and you can automatically bounce over to their particular profile. I mean, it's great because it adds another dimension to an image where you're not you can selectively let the user determine what they find most interesting.
You're playing devil's advocate now, aren't you?
No, I think it's a really cool product.
Really?
Would you buy it?
Yeah,
$400.
$400.
Yeah. I spend $700 on lenses. $400 is not a lot.
Clearly, you can afford a car in San Francisco.
I buy a very relatively inexpensive used car and a street park.
Good question from the chat room. Infallible wants to know: is there an option to make everything be in focus?
You mean, yeah.
Could I push a button and say the whole thing is in focus?
Well, that's the thing. It captures all the information that you need for any particular focus.
But can I choose it all to be in focus?
I think you can also choose infinity focus or focus to infinity, so everything would be in shot.
Well, you're a photographer. You could also shoot at f/22 and everything would be in focus.
Yes, and then you got to let it sit there for a while, and unless you want blurred images.
Well, I guarantee you're going to have the same problem in low light with this, right? How does this do in low light, Tim? Have you tried that?
No, that's another thing that we really want to test out when we get the chance to play with it, see how it is in the real world with low light conditions, with macro shots, with distant shots, the portraits. There's lots of different scenarios that we want to play with and see how it works. It's interesting. I don't think that I would pay $400 for it, but I would love to have something like this built into my next camera phone, because it would just be basically fire and forget. You point your camera in the general direction of whatever you want. You tap the screen, take the picture, and you kind of figure it out later what you want the focus to be. I just think that sounds nice.
It will, at least as exists, never be in a camera phone because it has to be this big.
It's too big. It's definitely too big, for sure.
I mean, they'll have to invent a new way of doing this before it can be a camera phone. Also, for some reason, they've determined that red is $100 more expensive.
No, it's 16 gigs.
Oh, it's 16 gigs.
Hey, don't knock the product for a feature.
I see. So this is the graphite and electric blue are 8 gigs, 350 pictures. Or you get 16 gigs, 750 pictures for $500. So it doesn't have removable memory either.
So when you mug someone, go for the red one.
Yeah. It has a USB port on it, though, so you can just... It's kind of like a flip cam. And remember how well they did.
They did pretty well.
Yeah.
They did really well until somebody bought them and kind of ran them into the ground.
Cisco.
Yeah.
Maybe Cisco will buy this guy. I don't know. Look at this. I don't know. I just... well, good. Roger, would you buy one and come and show us this?
I'll do that exact shot.
Do that. I want... He's Asian. You can do that. By the way, the publicity photos on the Lytro site, you can't refocus them.
That is very frustrating.
Yeah, very frustrating. All right, Lytro. When you buy one, come to the studio and take a picture. We'd love you to tell us.
Selectively focus or unfocus Leo.
Unfocus me. Take me out of focus, please. Dropbox got $250 million worth of funding. That's a huge venture round.
What was the valuation? Was $4 billion?
$4 billion. I have to think that Dropbox is yesterday's news a little bit with iCloud and Google and everybody else getting into similar services. Microsoft SkyDrive. It is. I mean, Dropbox was. I love Dropbox. It was great. It was very hot. But is now the time to be investing in Dropbox?
I think the fact that it's cross-platform is a big, because I heard a lot of reluctance from venture capitalists to invest in this round. But I think the fact that it's independent of one of the major platforms is a big thumbs up for Dropbox.
That's why I use it, because I can use it on my. In fact, a lot of iPhone apps use Dropbox to automatically sync text expander, things like that. In fact, I'm using something else called Spider Oak because I can encrypt stuff for my day-to-day copying, but it doesn't work on. Everybody is supporting Dropbox. Dropbox got in early. They've got an API, so everybody supports them. So that's the advantage there.
And then Apple tried to buy them for 9 figures.
Really?
And they said no. I mean, according to reports.
Wow.
So the fact that they've managed to stay out of one particular platform's control is a big reason
Bravo.
Why they got the vote.
Good news, you're not going to get cancer.
Well, from phones.
Well, yeah, you probably will get cancer from something else, but you won't be getting it from your... Well, the odds are, right? You won't be getting it from your cell phone, at least not according to Denmark. So this was, I was a little disappointed because the World Health Organization a short while ago put out a study that implied that, well, we don't know, you might be getting cancer. That phones are possibly carcinogenic. And it scared the hell out of everybody who didn't read between the lines. They just thought the World Health Organization was saying that phones were bad. Well, it turns out, because Denmark has these very bizarre privacy rules, we can pretty much rule out cancer from cell phones. Since 1968, every adult citizen of Denmark has had a national ID number. Cell phone companies have used that ID number to register subscribers, so you could basically take the whole Danish population and figure out whether they have cell phone accounts. And then, and this is very convenient, the country's Institute of Cancer Epidemiology is also tracking anybody born after 1924 by their national ID number. So it was just a matter of matching, and apparently with 360,000 people who had cell phone subscriptions in Denmark during the study period, 1 million other control people who didn't, it seems pretty clear that there is no higher incidence of cancer in people who use cell phones over a long period of time. You can breathe a sigh of relief. In fact, it looks like you're less likely, if you're a male cell phone user, to get a meningioma. So there you go.
Well, I mean, it's not surprising. People like to go on technology witch hunts,
Yeah, no
being
kidding.
on the computer too much causes
But it was not unreasonable to think that if you're holding something that's radiating your brain for long periods of time, that there might be some risk. But it turns out the frequency that these are at, the power that comes out of them, it's just...
Oh, interesting. It's adult citizen. I wonder if I wonder because one of the...
We don't know kids, that's right.
That's one of the big sticking points is like, okay, adults... for the most part, won't have any issues with it because their skulls are thicker. Kids are developing. There's
well, especially kids that keep cell phones on their soft spot. That would be a problem.
Yes.
So we do recommend against that.
So, I mean, the worry is that the power is rated safely for an adult, but not for a child.
Interesting.
And so, I have not seen any comprehensive study done on children under the age of 12.
Okay.
Because, lots of kids now have access to cell phones and use them regularly.
Right, Right.
So I mean, it's a good thing. I mean, like what was said is that, you know, for the most part, when people look at a new technology, there's always kind of that Luddite, you know, feeling that somehow it's bad.
I think it's not unreasonable to consider it or worry about it. But I'm actually very pleased to see this study, which I think is large enough and effective enough that we don't have to worry about it too much. By the way, Baba, who must be in Australia, are you in Australia, Baba? Because they got the book, you know, it's past midnight
in
there.
the UK as well.
In the UK. He says he's looked for the index, and I am not in Steve Jobs' book. So thank you for that. Any other stories that any of you want to bring up? Tim Stevens, anything that you're considering next week will bring us important?
Well, it's going to be Nokia World, so I think that we are very much expecting to see the C-Ray or possibly the N800, which would be the N9 running Windows Phone.
I saw that rumor that they were going to call it N800. They can't call it N800. They already have an N800. That can't possibly be true. Plus, they already have an N900. I own an N900. Why would I go backwards?
I mean, they've taken a step back before, but we are expecting multiple devices to be unveiled. I'm hoping that we'll see something with the keyboard. I think that seems like a lock. But that should be very interesting to see what Nokia does with Windows Phone. And the N9 is great hardware, and MeeGo is a great operating system. So I'm very curious to see if Windows Phone will be able to trump MeeGo in terms of functionality. But we'll have tons of coverage, of course, from Nokia World.
So you like the N9, which is running MeeGo? You like that?
Yeah, MeeGo is a fantastic little operating system. Of course, it's hurting from a lack of apps.
Is it basically Linux? It's like a customized Linux?
It's running on top of Linux, but it doesn't really feel like Linux. It doesn't really feel like much of anything. It's got this great way to switch between apps where you see full screen what your app is running, and you just kind of toggle between your app, and you just pick right up where you left off. It's got a nice, smooth, flowing window of your applications. It's just a really nicely put together operating system that sadly is basically stillborn.
That really is too bad.
It's
a
sad.
shame. Well, I look forward to it because I do think Windows Phone 7 deserves some attention. I think it's in some ways an impressive operating system, and I think with the right hardware and Mango, could be something there.
Yeah, I spent some time with an HTC Radar, which is running Mango, and it's a great little phone. But more importantly, it's a very nice operating system. I think Windows Phone is the kind of most intuitive, easy to use operating system right now. Certainly the most visually impressive mobile operating system that we have right now. But it's really just lacking in terms of apps and adoption. So maybe Nokia will help. I don't think it's going to have a big impact here in the U.S., but nicer hardware certainly never hurts.
So, Leo, are your photos upside down?
I'm trying to question, where the hell do they go? The PhotoStream photos. Is there a special place?
They're with Steve in heaven.
Besides North Carolina, is there a folder that they show up in? Oh, wait a minute. Here it is. PhotoStream. That would be it? Okay, turn on. Oh, I have to turn it on. Okay. Let's see if they're going to download.
Is this safe? Were you taking pictures of other things before the show?
Take a photo. Import new photos. Drag any photo. I don't know. Yeah, no, I was taking pictures just of...
Are they coming?
I don't know. No, it's just doing that. But the chat room has said yes, that Lance...
Oh, right there.
There we go.
Wow!
Are they upside down?
No.
No. So far, so good. These are old. So we're going to have to wait a little bit. It's actually importing stuff, all the pictures from my phone. Wow, that's cool. So far, nothing's upside down. This is...
Are you sure this is safe, Leo?
God, I don't know. This could be a first on TWiT, a picture of my butt. I don't.
Are you sure that's a first?
Actually, really, I should think about this. Let me see. Is there anything in here?
I see booze.
Oh, wait a minute. You can't. No, don't show it yet because they took the pictures of the penis cups, so that's not good. There's a nice shot of my head. So far, nothing that I'm embarrassed to show Alexia and Roger.
Is that a bookcase that's fallen over?
That might be sideways. I don't know. Okay, we're getting to the recent. Wait, my son apparently borrowed my phone. What the hell? Who's that? Okay, it's a girl. There's somebody. So far, nothing upside down. That's funny. My son, I guess, borrowed my phone, or else he did it with his phone. And these are all right side up, and I did these the special way. So there you have it, live. In studio, the iPhone at least or iPhoto, I should say, and that may be the key, that using iPhoto, because iPhoto is Apple's own product. It may be on Windows or something goes wrong, or kerflooey. So there we go. Wow, this was exciting. Hey, I thank you all for being here. I thank you, Alexia Tsotsis. She is at TechCrunch.com.
Thank you.
Are you
Leo.
excited about Netflix? I see you have
I'm
Netflix.
so excited. I can't wait until
quarterly.
I get unreasonably excited about certain earnings.
You
calls.
covered Microsoft's earnings call like
I
that was a
did.
big deal.
I thought it is a big deal. It's still, I mean,
They're still very profitable.
it's what, 18 billion in revenue. That's
Wow.
profitable. Plus, they're interesting because they've got online services, which is Bing, which is consistently losing money. I think it lost like 439 million.
It lost 270 last quarter, 439 this quarter. It's getting worse, kids.
No, it's actually
Losing less?
losing less. It lost like 500 or something last quarter, but it's still losing. So that's an interesting. To get into earnings calls, you really need to be like on the micro level part
Right.
of the like incremental story of the
Right.
company. Yahoo's are when Bart's was there, they were fascinating because she's like, get me another Diet Coke. I mean,
Hey, we didn't mention that. Is it credible at all that Google could conceively buy part of Yahoo? No.
depends on what part.
Why?
The
Well, that's what they
Asian-
say.
the Asian part.
The good parts.
Yeah. The parts that are valuable.
Stuff that isn't subject to U.S. regulation.
Well, I think Lance made a good point. They're not really a search company, Yahoo. They use Bing search. They're really a media company. They're a content company these days. I don't know why. I don't think Google would want them. I don't understand. I think that story is specious.
Rumor.
And we will see Netflix results this week. Boy, it's been a bad run for the last few months for Netflix. Any expectations for that story?
I hope Hastings talks about Quickster.
Quickster.
I can't believe he reversed his decision.
Yeah.
I think if he had just stood on okay, we're splitting the two businesses, people would have gotten used to it and been fine. Now they just look like they don't know what the hell they're doing.
Don't you think some of this is because they're being whipsawed by the movie companies themselves? That's really the problem. And in the long run, that's going to be Netflix's big problem, is that their business is not theirs. It's what the movie companies will let them do.
I mean, they need to figure out a solution to this, like all of these music apps, like Spotify.
I think they're screwed.
You take it from the movie companies and try to find a profitability model that allows you to survive. I mean, look at iTunes.
Right.
Charge more.
I think if they live at the pleasure of the movie companies. If the movie companies say you're done, you're done, and that's why I think Netflix has a problem. Roger?
I still use them.
All right. Roger Chang is at TechZilla.com and, of course, the host of Eats Meets West.
Yes.
Anything else you like to plug while you're here?
Yeah, watch TechZilla twice each week.
And
every Tuesday
anytime
and Thursday.
you're in Modesto, California, go to the Seafood Gallery, Fisherman's Galley.
Fisherman's Galley.
Fisherman's Galley, and say hi to Mr. Chang. Is that your dad's name?
Roy.
Roy. Say hi to Roy Chang.
Is it called the Jolly Roger?
No, it's Fisherman's Galley. It's the best seafood restaurant in all of the Central Valley.
Yes, I would say that.
Yeah. Oh, it's easy. Where do they get the fish?
Used to come from Pacific Seafood up in Stockton.
Okay, so they just send out for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tim Stevens, for being here. Tim is the editor-in-chief of Engadget. Great to see you. I love, and I've been looking at it all night, that painting behind you. Who did that? That Marlboro painting?
This is actually a painting of Ayrton Senna. That was done by a good friend of mine. So
that's awesome.
So there you go. It's it's Ayrton Senna. I think it was in his 1993 McLaren.
Is that Formula One or is it
Formula One? Yeah, the season before his death.
Awesome. Thank you all for being here. We do this show 3 p.m. Appreciate it, Tim. 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. That would be 2200 UTC at twit.tv. We already know a couple. Next week we got who? Dvorak? He couldn't be here this week.
No.
Eileen
this
Rivera,
was in
our producer.
2 weeks.
In 2 weeks, we know who's going to be on.
Yeah.
We don't know who's going to be on next week. My dog, Ozzy. At least. Anyway, we'll find out next week. We've got that barbecue coming up. Stay tuned for the Ford barbecue details so that you can come to that. There's one next month, November 13th, and then there's one in December as well.
That's correct.
So that'll be a lot of fun. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We'll see you next time. Another TWiT is in the can.
This is amazing.